My name is David.
I'm Robert.
We're here today to talk about the quality and durability of the all-new Pro R. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about the heritage of RZR. Back in 2008, RZR came out with an all-new platform in the side-by-side sport category. When it hit the market, Polaris RZR hit the ground running. We have not looked back since. Since its inception, a number of OEM vehicles have joined the market, all challenging RZR and creating a competitive environment. Based on that competitive environment, we've been able to produce vehicles like Turbo S in the 72-inch market, and most recently, the Pro XP platform. None of them compare to the Pro R. This vehicle is new from ground up. It is truly on a new level, and we're going to go through 5 core elements today, and we'll talk through those elements in detail. We've got power, driveline, all new suspension, and all new chassis and roll cage.
All right, so looking at the back of Pro R, the heart of the vehicle is the 225 horsepower, industry-leading, normally aspirated 2-liter engine. It's developed from the ground up specifically for the RZR application and anything that the environment can throw at it. We've designed it with new angularity requirements so that when you're doing the harshest dunes and running through the desert, the engine and lubrication system is going to keep up. With that, we've also added a new 1,700 watt alternator, which is equivalent of a 140 amp system. That can allow you to run all your accessories, lights, audio, whips, anything you want when you're out there having a day of riding. We've worked on the service points for the vehicle to make it easier to inspect, get ready to ride, and work on the vehicle. We've separated the engine into a hot and cold side. On the cold side, we have the dipstick, the oil filter, access to the alternator, and allow you to inspect and service those parts and items in a much cleaner, easier way than ever before. With that, we've mated the engine up to an all-new transmission to be able to handle the power. Inside the transmission, we put a slipper clutch to allow if there's any high loads in the front that are generated to protect the transmission, the front drive, and the driveline. You can see here on the table, we've got one of the drive shafts, the prop shafts of the vehicle. We've enlarged them for weight reduction. We went with a tubular style design.
With that, we'll talk over clutching. The physical size of the clutches has grown dramatically. In terms of that size, that equates to durability. But more importantly, it's how we are cooling the belt, which is a little bit of a strategy shift in terms of how we managed it. In the past, we've just really put a lot of flow rate into the clutch compartment, directing it towards the belt. In terms of a strategy shift, we're really trying to take away the heat where the heat is generated, which is at the clutch sheaves. So you'll see that we have on the vehicle, a dual path clutch cooling system, which pulls in fresh air from the front that delivers air to the driven clutch on the outer sheave. And on the back right, we have a bezel that pulls in a fresh air condition for the dual system where it pulls in on the inner side of the clutch sheave of the drive and also the inner side of the clutch sheave on the driven clutch. That coupled together with the windage plates that we put on and the strategy of being able to force that air to cool the clutch sheaves has ultimately improved our belt life dramatically. You can also see on the belts themselves. The inner one is what we currently use on the Pro XP and Turbo S. The outer one is the belt that we currently use on the Pro R. Based on these, the center distance has changed. We went from 10.5 to 12, thus reducing the amount of revolutions that need to occur on the belt and the amount of time that actually touches the sheave itself. We focused on really reducing that clutch temperature below 300 in the worst conditions. And so far, we have had phenomenal belt life and improvements in our driveline capability.
So let me show you my favorite thing on Pro R. It's the suspension design. We've put a lot of passion and work into this. As you can see, it's completely different than any other RZR Polaris has produced. It's 74 inches wide. The 2-seat has a 104.5-inch wheelbase. The 4-seat has a 133.5-inch wheelbase. With that, you can see there's a lot of differences in the suspension compared to a typical RZR. In a minute, Dave will show you some of those. But looking at it, you can see that we have boxed arms on the top and lower for the control arms. We have a 3-inch Fox shock that's going to the lower control arm. We've done all these to improve stiffness and to take the loads of any terrain you can throw at it.
As a program team, we dubbed this thing the 3-foot mogul killer. And we asked ourselves, what are we going to do in order to manage the loads that it's going to take to do that? Based on that, I got to tell you, we delivered in spades. On the left, we've got the Turbo S, which is a tubular design. It basically means that in order to take the stress that the lower control arm takes, you have to have a common thickness of tube, which means that you put weight where it's really not needed. In order to minimize the amount of weight of the front suspension, but yet give it the durability that it needs, we went to a boxed cross-sectional area stamped arm section. You can see the massive section where the shock interfaces with the lower control arm. The lower control arm is the arm that takes the vast majority of the hits, so it makes sense to put the shock on the lower control arm, thus increasing the weight slightly, but ultimately lowering the overall package of the weight of the vehicle. So the upper control arm can go down in weight, the lower control arm goes up a little bit to cover it. There are other aspects on these that dramatically changed as well. On the trailing arm sections, we've got a spherical bearing that's pretty massive. That's gone to M14 instead of M12. Also, connecting it to the chassis, on the Turbo S, we were at M12 bolts, and we went to a massive M14 bolts on the Pro R. We've also implemented a new automotive unitized hub with a 5-lug pattern instead of 4. So Turbo S had 4, and this is a common 4.5-inch stud pattern used in automotive today.
So talking about the chassis and roll cage, we've designed a all-new from the ground up system. Knowing the loads and capability of this vehicle, we had to start above and beyond where Turbo S and other vehicles left us. So we've designed a system that's over 2 times stiffer than those. That allows you to be in control no matter what terrain or where you're riding. Along with that, Polaris has developed a fully welded 1-piece roll cage that attaches to the chassis with a new innovative joint that we've designed. It's a taper lock design to give you more strength and stiffness, providing again over 2 times stiffness. So no matter what terrain you run over in this vehicle, it's going to be there for you.
So in closing, on the 5 pillars of durability and quality, we've got power. We're delivering 225 horsepower, leading the industry. All brand new driveline to be able to drive that power down to the ground. All new suspension to make this the most capable vehicle that is in an OEM package today. And we coupled that in with the chassis and roll cage to be able to pull all of those pieces together. We focus on desert and dune as our primary customers to ensure that in those heated climates, we have a vehicle that can handle the rigors of the terrain and the wide open spaces. Through that testing mileage, Polaris has been able to take the heritage of RZR, which was power, suspension, and agility, and convert that into power and total control, delivering you the highest performing, most capable vehicle in the side-by-side world to date, delivered from an OEM.